Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel-toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jaylen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Cut the music, Amit.
Oh, Jimmy.
There's no win tonight. The Celtics.
Jimmy Downer.
Cut the music. We almost went extra long on the music. If the Celtics could have pulled off that comeback all the way, we would have had a show for the ages and comeback for the ages tonight. But the Celtics come up just short in overtime after a valiant fourth quarter effort. I can't say it was a complete game effort, certainly, but down 24 in the third. Down, I think it was 14 entering the fourth, and even that grew up again in that fourth. But the Celtics, in the last few minutes of this one, reminiscent of the playoffs, I would say, to an extent, when the Pacers just could not find a way to close games last season. The Celtics climb all the way back, tie this one up on a Jayson Tatum three-pointer in the final seconds of the fourth quarter, but come up just short in overtime. We're going to get into it. We have Ashraf Blakely here. We have Noah Dalzell. We have Bobby Manning. Thank you guys for joining us. John Zanis. I guarantee you he would have jumped on the show tonight if the Celtics pulled off this comeback, but they come up short again once again. But we'll go around the table to start things off. We'll get everybody's big takes from this one. Again, Celtics come up just short in overtime. Couple missed free throws by Tatum and Brown there in the overtime, and then Pascal Siakam, the guy that we have dogged on this show many, many times. Bobby's former flame in Toronto back in the OG days when Toronto was his little baby. Now Siakam's moved on. Bobby's, on to bigger and better players, specifically Luke and some others. But Noah, we'll start with you to my right here on the screen, and then we'll go around the horn, just get you guys' takes from this one.
Yeah, this was a fascinating game because I feel like we have a whole conversation about everything that went wrong in the first 3.5 quarters, and I'm sure we'll get to all that. But I thought that group that was able to put that comeback together with Neemias Queta and basically Jrue Holiday and Al Horford had nothing to do with the last 15 minutes there, was just super fascinating to watch. And I would love to discuss kind of like what worked and how much we can actually extrapolate from Queta's impact on that game, because I do feel like it felt like a little bit of a breakthrough. And then honestly, I know we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown. He had a really tough night. And I think in overtime, just the offense they looked like they had run out of steam, and maybe they should have gone back to some of the guys from earlier on. But I feel good about this game, generally speaking, because I do think that it showed a lot of good things on a night when everything seemed like one of those nights where they should have just lost by 20. Like that was where things were headed.
It seemed like it was, yes.
Yeah, it seemed like they were about to just roll with that fact when they put in Walsh, Cade, Tillman about 8 minutes ago there in the fourth, and went on a 5-0 run, extended it out of that break. I think that built up to like 33-17 or something like that through the end of the fourth there. So they finally found a lineup that worked, pretty similar to the Washington game where they found a lineup that worked without Hauser, and Hauser came back tonight, looked okay. He had a decent night. Pritchard came back to earth a little bit. So all game they're looking for a second unit that would work again, and they found it just a bit too late with Cade out there. And Cade got lost for a while after that Washington game. They found him again tonight, and they have an interesting thing going on at center, certainly, to build on Noah's point there. Tillman, you love the defense, you love the versatility, but just can't seem to figure out where he fits in offensively still. Cade, you love what he's bringing, but you can't play him with Luke, so you're sort of picking one or the other there most nights. And then Horford, who's going to be Horford at that spot. So you almost feel like you have to play all four at this point to be able to get a little bit of everybody in there, because I don't think you're going to bench Luke and not play him at all to get Cade in there. But Cade needs to play more.
Of course you think you're not going to bench Luke.
So Cade is the backup center now?
No, I'm just my thing is
love this tweet.
Here's the thing, that when I look at the center position, I look at it and obviously those guys are playing because of Porzingis' injury. And it's kind of like when you take your car to the shop and they give you a loaner there's a pretty good probability that the loaner that you get is not as good as the car that's in the shop. And then you get another loaner and it's not any better because there's something that it doesn't have that your main ride does. And Bobby, you pointed out very specific things that each of those guys lacks. And the Celtics, they're trying to basically mask those deficiencies and still win games with them on the floor. And it's tough. There are going to be nights where it's not going to work. Even though you look at the final numbers in terms of offensive rebounds, and the Celtics, I think, were +2. It didn't feel like it was a +2 kind of offensive rebounding night. It seemed that Indiana was quicker to the ball, getting a lot of those 50-50 balls. The jump ball in there in the end, that setup, the shot for for Spicy P, who's not quite so spicy now that he's in Indiana. Again, those are the kind of plays that we've seen the Celtics throughout last season and really early part of this year. They found ways to make those plays and get the ball in those situations, and it didn't happen tonight. This was a game that, to me, the most impressive thing was that they didn't get blown up by 20. That's the thing. If you're the Celtics, you did not play a good game for really the overwhelming majority of the night. And there you were in overtime. Forget about close game. You took these guys to overtime. And this was a game that Indiana absolutely needed way more than you did. Because the idea of them losing 4 of their first 5 games off the kind of season that they were coming off of last year, getting to the conference finals, is a major blow to them, just mentally tough to overcome. 2 and 3 feels a lot better than 1 and 4 for them. And if you're the Celtics, you're not, I don't think, going to overreact or trip about this loss because, again, this is a game on the road against a team that typically plays you well, regardless of who's playing well or not for you. They typically play you well. And if you're Joe Mazzulla, the good thing is that your team's 4-1 and you've got plenty of stuff to work on and get your players' attention because they did not play a very good game. And yet there they were in position to potentially steal this one.
So we'll get into it. I mean, was it something the Pacers did? Because it seemed like the Pacers came out in this game and they were playing the way they wanted to play. I mean, they were rotating, I think, a lot harder on defense. They made those 3-point shots difficult for the Celtics tonight. I will say the Celtics did miss their fair share of open ones, but it felt like the Pacers playing with more of a purpose on the defensive end, especially in the first half, that kind of helped them, I guess, build that lead and sort of instill, play their way. Like I always joke about, they want to prance, they want to dance out there, they want to run the floor. So when they're getting those stops on the defensive end, they're able to do that. And it wasn't even Halliburton for most of this game. He didn't really come alive till late in that game. It was,
Benedict
their bench
Mathurin.
guy. Yeah, Mathurin.
He went
Unbelievable.
off the bench for 30. Yeah,
unbelievable. He was going toe to toe with the entire Celtics bench tonight. I mean, he looks like a starter on most teams. So we'll see if he.
And he didn't play in those East Finals. They missed him.
Right. We'll see if he ends up staying on the bench. He might be a guy that ends up in that starting lineup at some point in this season. But what was it exactly that the Pacers were doing that affected the Celtics tonight until
they played harder? They played harder, Jimmy. I mean, when the Celtics go back and look at the film, you can break down X's and O's all you want to, but the way that they were moving on cuts, the way that they were swinging the ball left to right, side to side, and just attacking at both ends of the floor, they played harder than the Celtics. And it's not that the Celtics didn't play hard. It's just that Indiana played harder. Indiana did everything with more as you mentioned, Jimmy. They did it with more purpose, more focus, more intensity. And if you're the Celtics, you're going to have nights like that where you're just going to get outworked. There's not a single team that's ever played in the NBA a full season that didn't have a night or two or more where they just simply got outworked by the opponent. And that's exactly what happened tonight. Indiana, there was nothing special that Indiana was doing out there. They just simply played harder in every sense of the word. Guys were making shots, yes, but those shots they were being rewarded for their effort in large part because of those shots. And so if you're the Celtics, this is, again, it wasn't one of those games where you're going to go back and you look at the film and there's no fingers to point at anyone but yourselves. You did not play as hard as you needed to against a team that they're going to play you hard. So, I mean, Noah and Bobby, you can definitely break it down. But at the end of the day, as I'm watching this game play out, the effort was the one thing that, to me, there was a constant throughout this game that the Celtics simply were unable to match.
Yeah, and you look at these finals, and that's what hurt them there too, the speed, the movement. And Jimmy, you compare one of the games, game 3 there, where Celtics had to storm back down 18. A similar feel to it. Still amazing that Indy didn't win a game in that series, given how they can bother Boston here. And I think teams like this we've talked about in the past, they have pace, they have young guys who move and who run and can play big minutes, beat you off the dribble. I think the Celtics defensively, both in the half court and in transition, where they've struggled all year so far, as me and Joe went back and forth about last game. There's something going on with their defense right now, and I think a lot of it is lineup instability. They're trying so many different combinations, especially into their bench units. But they really, especially when they went down 10-20 in this game, they were getting beat bad in transition in this one. It improved as the game went on, but it got ugly there for a while.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is I do think like the missed layups we underestimated, because I feel like when you're watching, you don't feel it the same way as when you're on the floor. But when they are missing those types of shots, like it just has such a ripple effect on their defense and has such a ripple effect on the next offensive possession. And there were some bad takes, but there were also so many just bad misses where there was literally no reason for them to miss layups. Yeah, Holiday had some. Jaylen had a bunch that were actually the right read, I think, and we can go back and watch, but I do think that he had a bunch where he just missed shots that he normally makes. And so it's just like it creates this ripple effect where like then the defense is not in position in transition defense. And it's not like that's the only reason, but I feel like this was one of those nights where like the mistakes just kept piling up, and then you look lazy, and it's not necessarily always a lazy thing. And I'd be curious. I wish we could hear Joe, because I'd be curious what Joe has to say about this, because I feel like that is a big story of what happened here. Like when you miss all those twos, and then in the beginning, it was ridiculous. It was like one of the worst inside the arc performances we've seen in a while from them. And it was just very clear how that was impacting things.
Yeah, we'll see if we'll have Ahmed on the scene. He'll be scouring Twitter to see if there are any quotes that come out from after this one, because I would also be interested to see how Joe explains this one or defends it, whatever he typically does. But yeah, Noah, to your point, 40% from the field tonight for the Celtics, just 33% from three, 19 of 57 compared to Indy, 15 of 38. So not a big difference there. And then you look at points in the paint, 62 points in the paint for Indy compared to 44 for Boston. So a little bit of that goes hand in hand.
I had them at 38% in the paint first half, 50% second half, and 1 at 3 in overtime.
And again, it's not like Indy's this big, bad interior presence team. I mean, you'd get more of that out of a team like Milwaukee with a guy like Brook Lopez in there. But,
no Turner tonight, too.
Right. No Turner. Exactly. So top one for Celtics fan. There is one Celtics fan that is going to have a very good night, and we're going to announce that person's name in just a bit. We're talking about the CLNS giveaway / getaway, whatever you want to call it, of the PS5, the Jayson Tatum signed basketball, the NBA 2K25 video game. We do have a winner, and unfortunately, it is not me. I was pissed just as much as you guys are to hear that news, but I did not win, even though I did everything I could to maximize my entries. So we will be announcing that winner in just a bit. I won't make you guys wait for the end of the show, but we'll make you wait a little bit longer. We want to get into a few more things here for everybody who jumped on. Again, thanks to everybody watching right now. So we've talked about a few guys off the bat. Who do you guys want to start with? Do you want to start? Let's start with the bad. I'm gonna pull a John here in his seat. I'm not going to talk about Cade yet, and I don't even think Bobby wants to talk about Cade yet, because when you talk about Cade, you got to talk about Luke, and I don't think you're going to like what some people have to say. But why don't we start with Tatum? This was a Tatum game that a little bit different than some of the other ones we've seen. Certainly some of the first couple. I see a lot of people in the chat saying that it felt like he kind of tried to go into a little bit of hero mode at one point. That 3-point shot is still, it feels like it's coming back down to earth a little bit here. And I'm going to get Tatum's numbers up right here on the screen. Noah, your thoughts on Tatum and how his game looks maybe a little bit, I don't want to say off, but different. I mean, it's right there staring at you, 5 of 18 from 3. So, I mean, you got a guy taking that many shots from the outside. You're going to start to wonder what's going wrong if he's missing as much as he has been.
First of all, 18 3-pointers is insane. I would love to know the last time.
Thank you for saying it.
Pointers. And
they were
Jaylen took
launching
11
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, they were 6 for 29, the two of them. And then Derek was 5 of 5.
Not great, Bob.
57 threes again. And tonight, no, I feel like they were like we've said, they're taking a lot of threes, but they're setting them up well. In this game, they were launching.
Yeah, they were in shot chuck mode tonight for sure.
If the chat's wondering,
I
we
feel
are going
like
to get
Tatum-
the JV too.
I feel like people are panicking. I feel like Tatum lived multiple lives in this game. Like he had some stretches where he was the reason they were coming back and keeping them in it, and then he had some moments where it was tough to watch. And Jaylen, I think, didn't have as many of those positive stretches, so his numbers are going to look a little bit worse today, and we'll probably spend a little bit more time on him than on Tatum. But for the most part, like you didn't see him consistently making the right play on offense the way that we have seen from him, throughout these first 4 games of the season. But he had some good moments. I mean, he had the game tying 3-pointer. He had a couple of big defensive plays down the stretch. Like he was a really critical part of that comeback in the fourth. So if they win this game, like I think and he hits 1 or 2 shots in the overtime that he doesn't hit, like we're talking about how Tatum brought them back here in large part. So Derek was the other guy that was huge
to an extent.
But I do think the narrative there is very close to being a different story for him. But yeah, the numbers look tough.
What do you think, Sherrod?
We kind of expect this from Tatum. I mean, when you get off to the kind of red hot start that he did shooting the ball, the law of averages says he's due for a game or 2 or 3 like this, and so it's not a surprise. But to Noah's point, the 18 shot chucks, because I don't call him 3-point. He did a lot of shot chucking in this game, just raising up without really moving the ball or creating kind of space that he needed to be effective. Bad Tatum game. I thought he did some good things defensively, but there weren't enough at that end of the floor to mask the struggles offensively. And they need him to really just play with a certain amount of poise out there. And you don't have to shoot the ball well, but he has to find ways to impact the game in a significant way, positively for the Celtics. I just didn't think that happened. Defense was so-so. His offense was bad. And you granted, big 3 that he hit that helped send the game to overtime. Bravo. But guess what? You're one of the reasons why your team was down by damn near more than 20 points and facing a double-digit deficit because you just weren't able to be impactful at the offensive end of the floor. So,
we've talked about it. We've talked about before. When you're shooting 18 or 25 shots from 3, you're just playing a make-miss game at that point. And he was red hot on opening night, comes out back to earth a little bit. I think 15 of his last 50 at this point from 3, and he's shooting, let's call it 60-70% of his shots from 3. So he's not giving himself a chance to get easier looks inside. He goes to the free throw line a bunch in this one, so I guess that's where he gets that from. But I don't know, not to do the whole 3-point thing because we've been down that road a million times under Joe, but I feel like they are going a little far with just a little bit early on with the jump shots here. And part of it's personnel, right? You don't have Porzingis. You don't have a lot of guys that can get you those inside looks. But with Tatum, like we saw him in the post quite a bit early last year. I think their post numbers as a team are still pretty high here. But for him specifically, back to the debate we've had a million times when it comes to MVP, when it comes to all this different stuff with him, I feel like they're making the game more difficult for him than it needs to be a lot of the time. Like you can get him rolling off White, you can get him in the corner, and they did at times in this game, and he just missed the shots. But when 18 of your shots are threes, you're either hitting 40% of them and you're having a great game, or you're shooting 5 of 18 and you're not as great here. And that's unfortunately, even with all the other stuff he does here, a big part of the story with him.
And then that goes hand in hand with. Oh, sorry, Noah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, after you.
I was just gonna say, I think I don't really care about like the total numbers of threes because I feel like there have been games where they've taken a ton of 3-pointers, and if you go back and watch the reel of them all, they're like 3 passes finding an open guy. To me, it's like how many passes is there before the 3-pointer? Is it Tatum dribbling out the clock? Is it every single guy touches the ball until somebody's wide open and in rhythm? And I feel like and usually I feel like until I rewatch the game, I don't have a great sense of it. But from this one, you don't really need to rewatch it because it was very obvious that it was very obvious that a lot of the shots that everybody took across the board, they weren't those like the offense is clicking, everybody's touching the ball, and they're getting an easy one at the end. And that usually determines the percentages as well. So I don't mind him. Like if he took 18 threes because they were, moving the ball around and everybody and he was getting good looks, like then fine. But that's not really what a lot of these were. And I think that's what Joe would say about the 3-point shooting thing too, is that it's not like the number, but it's the quality. And the quality today was pretty low across the board.
But the number is a bit like jarring. I mean, they're averaging more than 51 threes taken per game. I mean, not per week, but per game.
And it was 42 last year, and they were first in the league.
Yeah. I mean, they're right now, there's not a team, anywhere in the same zip code as them when it comes to threes. I mean, I think Chicago and Oklahoma City are like behind them as far as 3-pointers taken, and they take about 3 or 4 less per game, and they're jacking up a ton of them as well. But I just don't think this is sustainable. I don't think you can go throughout this course of a season taking 52, 53 threes a game and expect to be the last team standing. I think they need to, to me, mid to high 40s at the end of the day is a good number. And maybe to the point that, one of you made earlier about Porzingis and his absence, and maybe they're trying to compensate for that. But there are other ways you can compensate for that, particularly when you're playing teams that don't have the kind of lethal 3-point shooting threats that you do. And on nights when it's just not going down, do what Tatum did. I thought in the second half more so, and just go to the rim, attack, go downhill. You don't have to knock down threes to score in this.
Yeah, league. And they were obviously missing a ton of layups in this game too, which is what I'm sure Joe would say. But the thing that's interesting to me is that all of these threes we're talking about and their offensive rebounding game that we talked about earlier are pretty related, and that's I love how aggressively they attack the offensive glass, because if you're going to shoot this many threes, you're going to miss a lot of shots, and you got to be able to track them down. But in the first half, and I am going to go at Luke a little bit here.
Oh boy,
you got to be able to haul in some of these.
This day in history, folks.
He tapped out a few. He tapped out a few, sent the Pacers right the other way in transition. I feel like Holiday missed one at one point that was right in his hands. They missed a lot of offensive rebounds that were right in their hands early in this game, and if you're going to be crashing hard, if you're going to be missing a lot of threes because you're taking a lot of threes, you got to be able to secure those. And that is going to lead right into our Cornet-Cade debate right now, because what do you need?
We're not there yet. I want to finish up on
what do you need at center? That's what we're going to ask.
Sure. But real quick, because we did have a couple quotes from him. Ahmed hunted down a few quotes from Joe, and I want to read one of them because this kind of goes hand in hand with what Sherrod was saying a little bit earlier, and just the way the Celtics played today. But one thing I'll add, and Bobby, you just kind of touched on it, and Sherrod, you were talking about the number of threes that this team takes. I actually do think that they're not going to stop doing this. I mean, I think the team is built for this style of play. I think that's the mentality. I think that's what Joe wants them to do. I think if you're a player, yeah, it's who you are. If you're a player, you love getting told, yeah, take the three. You're not going to pass up the three and instead, drive and get contact if you can just take the three. Now, to your point, Sherrod, I do think that somebody like Tatum does need to drive a little more. When he did it tonight, late in that game, he found success. He started getting to the line. He missed a big free throw in overtime, obviously, but he got to the line more. And sometimes that helps you get into a rhythm. If you're out of a shooting rhythm, get to the line. Get your stroke back out there, and try to work on it, and maybe that clicks you back into gear. But it wasn't the case tonight. But I do, and also Bobby, to your point, the more long shots, the more long rebounds. And if you're playing against a team that loves to run and they love to pick up the pace and they love to maximize offensive possessions just like you do, that's a recipe for disaster if you're not hitting those shots, because you're allowing them to do exactly what they want to do, which is get out on the break, which is get as many offensive possessions and get into a track match. And that's pretty much what happened, a track meet. So, and then you end up with what happened tonight. Now, the Celtics obviously clawed back into it due to some, I would say, executional issues by Indy and some shots that finally went down. And Derek White made a few nice plays, and Peyton Pritchard, I thought, did a commendable job as well tonight. But here's Mazzulla. He was asked about the Celtics forcing overtime but coming up short. He said, they outplayed us. I thought we were a step behind in everything. Their speed, their pace, they were a step ahead of us. I thought we missed a ton of layups. We just didn't play our best, and Indiana played great. You can focus on that, or you can focus on the fact that we stayed in it. There's two things to focus on: making sure we're not a half of a step behind, but you see what we're capable of at our best.
But what, Jimmy? That half step behind that he's talking about, we've seen that in most of these games. They just haven't been burned by it. And you
Right.
see it, I think,
Good
more
point.
Because they get bailed out by the shots that they hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you see it more at their. To me, it's a problem in their transition defense, specifically at the rim. Last year, the Celtics were the third best team in the NBA as far as limiting field goal percentage within 5 feet of the basket. So far
And they
this
were
year,
number
they're
one
the
in
third
transition,
worst.
Shrod.
What's that?
Then they were number one defending transition last
Yeah,
year.
and now they're the third worst team as far as field goal percentage at the rim, within 5 feet of the basket. And if you're taking those threes, but you're giving up layups basically at the other end of the floor, you're going to have to play the 3-point shooting game. You're going to have to take a bunch of threes. It's to the point now where unless they start, that defense gets better, they're going to, Bobby, they're not going to have a choice but to keep jacking up threes to be in games, because their defense around the rim is just bad right now.
I've noticed that, Noah. They're giving up a lot at the rim, and it feels like because they want to, we talk about how extreme, not to say it's a bad thing, but it's been extreme how many threes they're shooting. They're going to the extreme on the other end too, and saying we're taking away all the threes. You can have whatever else you want, and it's actually slipped out to the rim where, we talk about like mid range, you'll give up those because it's not very efficient, but the rim's pretty efficient. Like going back to Brad saying, we want to dunk. Like, when he got asked about the threes, like the best thing you can have is a dunk. And they're giving up a lot of dunks and layups so far to start this year.
Yeah.
And Missoula touched on the defense as well. He said, we just have to get better. Our half-court defense statistically is really good. Our transition defense isn't.
He's right.
Bobby's so back.
He admitted
Bobby's
it.
so back.
He admitted it, Bobby.
Because I wasn't there. If I was there, mate. Yeah. No, I mean,
if you were there, you never would have said that, Bobby. No way.
You got to retweet that quote for whoever tweeted it. I don't know who did, but
they've been shaky in transition. And listen, the stats are the stats. I guess they're 12. They were 12 when he said that, when you take out the garbage time. But tonight it fell apart. There's no
you can't get around
it. I mean, it was a layup line, Noah.
I also just think the Indiana Pacers have not been themselves so far this season. I've been tuning into them a little bit because they're one of my favorite teams to watch. And I feel like tonight they found their rhythm, like regardless of Boston, like they were back to the Indiana Pacers team that made it to the conference finals last year and was the most challenging series Boston had. And it wasn't Tyrese Halliburton. It wasn't one guy. Like I felt like there was a lot of good things going for them in the ball movement and the cuts. And so like, it's not all on the Celtics, but I would definitely agree that the paint defense in general has just looked, they don't look like they have an identity in that sense. And I think they're still figuring out like who is going to be the guy. If Al Horford is, if he's going to have the same responsibilities as last year. Like Porzingis was on the team for a lot of last season. I almost feel like we forget about him sometimes because he wasn't there during the playoffs. But a lot of the full year statistics and analytics like include Porzingis being one of the best rim protectors in the league. And so I'm curious if this game, I don't want to jump ahead. I know, Jimmy, I'm sure you have an itinerary here, but I am curious if what takeaways there might be based off of Nini's kind of breakthrough tonight and whether that's a sustainable thing, because I felt like I was watching like a turning point in his career tonight. And I don't know if that's dramatic. I tend to view everything a little dramatically when I'm watching it in real time, but I did feel like, hey, this is a guy who has been sitting now for 2 consecutive games. He didn't play last game. He hadn't played all this game. And he came in and he showed not just like, oh, I'm going to play hard, but like they didn't have an answer for it. They really didn't. And he has this gift and this knack for getting the ball that we see now every time he plays. And that was my thing. Like, I know we're going to talk about a lot of the things that went wrong still, but I feel like that was my biggest takeaway from this game is just the fact that we might have something here that's more sustainable and more scalable than maybe we thought. I don't know. Maybe that's an overreaction.
Well, I think Cade.
I think it's a battle. I think it's a real battle, Sherrod.
Well, I think it's a battle, but I think Cade is a very there's certain situations and scenarios where I think Cade is, to me, you absolutely play him over Luke. And I thought this was one of those games. Indiana likes to get out and run and attack, and you need a guy that can get back and make some plays defensively at the rim. And right now, Cade is that guy. He's their best rim protector. And it just seems that when you look at the first 4 games, rim protection was a problem for the Celtics. And you're playing a team that wants to get out and run. And when teams want to get out and run, what are they looking for? Dunks and layups. That's what they want. And, in hindsight, we're gonna look back at this game and think, man, they probably should have played Cade more in this one because of the matchup. But the big picture in all of this is that the Celtics have started the season, they've won 80% of their games. And I mean, if they continue at this clip, they're going to be okay. They're going to be more than okay. But the point is, to me, Joe mentioned that you can take two things away. You can either look at how we struggled or how we came back. Smart money says you look at how you struggled, because that is going to impact you much more going forward than how well you played down the stretch. What they did at the very end, you're not going to see that happen night in, night out, because the guys that got you back into the game are probably not going to be on the floor unless you're down by 20 or so points like they were tonight. And there aren't going to be a lot of games where the Celtics are going to be down like that. So the way they got back into the game, to me, you can't bank on that. They just got to be better, point blank, and play harder.
Yeah, there's a good point here too. Like, Cornette's still giving you a lot of good things, so it's tough if you're going to make the shift to Cade, because they can't play together, right? Neither of them shoot.
God, no. Don't do it.
Up, so yeah, they can't do that. So you're sort of picking one or the other. Maybe it's a matchup thing. Maybe it's something where you're trying them in different spots, trying to see what you have, because they're still in experiment mode. It's a great point by Noah. Porzingis was there all last year, and when we started listing concerns going into this year, it was like, wow, you miss Porzingis in the playoffs, but you can play Horford 40 minutes in the playoffs because it's the playoffs. All your regular season when you're managing Horford and doing all these other things, not having Porzingis out there is a big difference for, 40 games or whatever it's going to be here, 30, 40 games, because of the fact that you have to fill in. And, we got a back-to-back coming up this weekend where Horford's going to miss one of those games. So it's much harder to figure out how these guys play together, what guys' roles are, and what you need at that spot, because Horford's back at center. He was the 4 a lot of the year last year. You didn't see Cade outside of like 2-3 games. You don't know how much you can trust them. And I still think there's going to be a hesitancy to trust them, because Luke knows their defensive system like the back of his hand. And Cade is sometimes still a little lost out there. I mean, he played great in Washington, Noah, and they sat him down because he didn't know where he was on defense. And so yeah. I love the idea, and everyone thinks I'm against Cade because I'm a Luke guy. I love Cade. When they signed him, I thought it was a grand slam. But where do you fit him in here? It's really tough to figure it out outside of these situations where you just need a spark, some energy. He's almost like Brissett a year ago, or the Cade you had last year.
I think that's exactly what you do. He's a situation guy, and this was a situation tonight where he should have played more. I think that's where he's at right now in his development. I think when you look at just the overall contributions that he makes, the consistency and things like that, Luke is ahead of him because you know exactly what you're getting from Luke night in, night out. Cade could be better than Luke on some nights. He could be significantly worse. You really don't know. Luke, meanwhile, is going to be pretty consistent. He's going to, he's going to set great screens. He's going to roll to the basket. He might get you a couple rebounds. He's going to do that night. He's going to be, he's not going to lock anyone up defensively, but he's not going to just be, a easy pass out there for guys either. So I think you got to look at Cade as a situational guy.
I was just going to say that. So the reason he played effective, the reason he got the minutes he got then is because things weren't going right out there. You guys just touched upon it earlier. They were getting out rebounded. They were getting, down low was kind of going in Indy's favor there, and felt like they were being out tough, out physical, So that's what Cade gives you. We know that about him. We know that when he goes into these games that he's a physical guy. We know he can get his just hands on, on rebounds, whether or not he ends up coming down with it. He affects like the positioning. He affects where the ball ends up a lot of times, right? So that's why he's in the game, and it worked tonight. And it was a good adjustment that Joe made because he saw a need for this team and he went for it. And that used to be Luke, right? I mean, Luke used to be a situational guy that they would bring in for a spark, Bobby. He would come in with Pritchard. Those two guys would come in and, to try to mess things up and change the dynamic of the game. Now Pritchard has a pretty serious role, and right now so does Luke. So there's guys filling into those roles now, and Cade is one of those guys. So again, the more games and performances he can put together like tonight, the more that opportunity will come up. That doesn't mean that he's going to be named a starter in place of Luke, but he might get the nod a little bit earlier in the game, right? Maybe a little bit sooner if if Missoula identifies a need for, the physicality to go up a little bit, because they do need that. I mean, I think this can be a tough team, but there are situations, especially down low, where they can be pushed around a little bit, especially if they're going to get into the habit of chucking threes, right? Because listen, the more threes that you're chucking, and these guys, they got 4 guys lining up on the 3-point line almost every, possession. So if you want somebody down low, banging down low, a guy like Cade is going to be able to do that. And so it worked tonight. And I think you'll see him in those situations a lot sooner moving forward. I think that's the trust level he's earned so far.
I do think ultimately, like the Cade defensive mistakes has been something that they're well aware is what's holding him back right now. I mean, Summer League was literally structured around Cade come to Vegas. We're going to try a bunch of different defensive schemes that we run in Boston. Everybody else play their part, and Cade has to practice different schemes. I mean, that was literally one of the big objectives of why he was over there and what they were working on. And ultimately, like, he can watch film and he can practice, but I think he's going to need these runs. And if their record is good enough, and right now, I mean, they're 4-1. So, for all the mistakes and things, like, they're winning. If they can continue winning, like, I would love to see Cade play more, just so that he can get the practice and he can actually improve, because I think it's one of those things that you just have to do at one point. And I don't care if it costs them a game or two. It's, I think that there's a really high ceiling there. And maybe, sometimes you get excited about guys and then they're not there. And I've certainly had those guys, but I really think, like, watching him today in the fourth quarter, like, he was a major reason why that game turned. And that's not the first time that we've seen him do this thing that very few players in the NBA can do. Like, he is a ball magnet on offense. It's not like every team has one of these guys. Like, it really feels like you're watching a gift. And I feel like it's a useful enough gift to be worth like kind of exploring, and to give him the opportunity. And again, if the schemes are like, maybe he just doesn't get it. Like, there's certain things that, and from an IQ standpoint, that you just can't overcome. Like, and that I understand that piece, but I feel like you have to give it your absolute best shot this season and see if you can do it, because the upside's just totally there.
They play a unique style too on defense, Jimmy, where like they'll change things a lot on the fly, or they'll have guys make reads and play outside of the system. Like, they do a lot of things in there that are very much like being on a dime and being connected. And so, like, things obviously are going to look a little fast, a little overwhelming for him out there, because he just hasn't played with this group. So, Noah's right. They got to get him reps if they want to get him up to speed, because that's stuff you're not going to learn in practice or just sitting on the sideline. But it's tough when Luke's been doing it for as long as he's been going out there. And, like, I still can't get over the way the fans talk about Luke. It's so ridiculous. Like, like, it's just, I can't believe we're this far into the experience and people still don't get what makes him impactful out there. Like, he's just positionally sound, and it might not look amazing.
Get it,
might
Bobby.
not be...
I think people get it, but I think that you're up here and they're probably just a little bit lower on the, like, they get it.
No, it's because he's not swatting guys into the stands.
Yeah, I think people have. I think Luke has grown on everybody. Certainly from last season. We're just not ready to crown him like all NBA first team, like some people might be. So
no, and listen,
that's the difference.
I'm in perfect agreement with Noah here. You got to balance it. You got to be able to find some situations for Cade to come in. And I did think it was a little ridiculous that he played as well as he did in Washington and then just got a DNP the next night against Detroit. Like, you couldn't play him a couple minutes against Detroit, especially in a game where you were getting pretty overwhelmed physically in that game, Sherrod.
I thought the Detroit game was the perfect game to play in, because Detroit's got a young fellow named Duren who's pretty damn active and around the basket. And Duren didn't miss a shot, if I remember correctly. And that was, every shot was within 5 feet of the rim. So, like I said, there are clear situations where I think he can be a better fit being out there for more minutes than Luke. And I think, as I think Noah mentioned it earlier, this is an experimental state that the Celtics are in, where they're just trying to figure out, how to make this loner that they've got at center function as impactful as, the car that should be driving in that spot, which is Porzingis. And some days they can make it look pretty good. Other days, like tonight, it looks bad. It looks bad at that position. So.
You muted, Jimmy.
Sorry, guys, my bad. I was saying, as good of a night as it was for Cade, we're talking about when guys should get the nod. We're talking about minutes distribution. I think we might see, and I know they're not the same player, but we might see Cade take another big man's role on this team, at least minutes wise. You guys know who I'm referring to? The
Tillman.
X-Man. The X-Man. Yes.
I have to
exactly.
say, friends that I haven't heard from in months reached out to me tonight about Xavier Tillman.
Really? They were fired up?
The people were not happy about Xavier Tillman tonight. He was a tough watch, but I felt like the public reaction surprised me.
Well,
People
I
were
think
really
people
reaching out
are.
to discuss.
I think people are just kind of at that point now, but they're like, okay, what is he doing like well for this
It's
team?
tough.
And I
It's
think a
tough.
lot of people are finally just there where they're like, okay, like I don't need to see Tillman on my TV right now, or I don't need to see him playing right now.
That's
That
exactly what the
doesn't mean
text
that
was
they're gonna.
saying.
It doesn't mean that he's gonna be a zero for the rest of the year. But I think right now Tillman just does not seem NBA. Whether it's the shape he's in or whatever it is, they can barely get off the floor. It feels like at times. If you're talking about those rebounds and getting up and putting the ball back in the rim on offense. He's not the guy. He's not the guy right now, pal. He's just not the guy. So if Cade might be taking those minutes, we might not be talking about Luke versus Cade here. We might be talking about Cade versus Tillman. And I think right now it's Cade. And I know they're not the same player, but there's only so many minutes to go around for a big position. And I think
they're really short
that.
at the 4. Like when you think about losing O'Shea, who would play that spot and give you a little bit of shooting, and Tillman and O'Shea are probably about the same shooter. Tillman might actually be a little bit better, but I think it cancels out there. It's tough. You're so short at that position. You want to play double big. Tillman just doesn't. I think the biggest thing with him is he's hesitant at that spot to shoot, and he ends up inside a lot. I don't think he has much oomph inside in terms of putting the ball in the net. So that's not a very effective either. And, I like the idea of seeing him more at the 5, Noah, but if he can't score around the rim, that's going to be a tough spot for him to play. And then if he's at the 4, really the only thing he can do is shoot threes, and that's not a strength for him either. And it's tough because he's so good defensively.
And why would you want him shooting the 3? I mean, that's the guy that any team would make you have him shoot the 3.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's usually open. There's a reason why.
Exactly.
They're in a tough spot rotationally. Yeah, right now, because you're either playing all these bigs that we're kicking around, which leaves you short in terms of your spacing and the system you want to play, or you're going small. And I felt like, Noah, for a lot of tonight, the game was just begging for them to go small, and they can't do it. They don't have the guys. Like Springer, your guy is like a million miles away from playing, it feels like, unfortunately, because he's one of the guys that could actually allow you to go small. You don't have reserve wings. Like Jordan Walsh, do you start to play him over Tillman, maybe? Is that the answer?
He's just another
I felt like when
guy.
Jordan Walsh, but I felt like when Jordan Walsh is there, it's actually been good for everybody else. Like, I'm not even talking about his individual performance. He didn't really blow me away tonight. He played well.
He might not be that far behind Tillman.
I don't think.
I just think he doesn't put anybody else out of their comfort zone. Everybody else gets to do exactly what they were doing before, and Jordan Walsh is on the floor. Like, it just seems like he's a seamless fit with
good
this particular
screen
team right
setter.
now.
He's long.
Yeah,
like he's not as big and burly as Tillman, and Tillman's obviously a better defender, but he's long. Like, I'm almost ready to say, just I don't want
Walsh can get up and down the court better.
I don't want Walsh and Maine at all this year. Like, he needs to be part of this team. I know he's young and he's raw, and there's going to be some ups and downs, but if you're letting O'Shea go the way they did, and you don't have that ability to go small anymore, you need Walsh. Like, we're talking about Cade catching up and just sort of taking his lumps and playing. I think Walsh is going to have to do the same this year, just for them to have the lineup versatility that they need. Or, as Brad said over the summer, you might have to look to shake up this roster a little bit mid-season, because it's a logjam right now. They have a lot of centers and not a lot of wings.
Shaking it up, easier said than done. And Brad knows it.
Right.
Brad knows it. That's good luck with that one.
Also easier said than done. I'm gonna get through a few ad reads here, and then we're gonna announce the winner officially of the CLNS giveaway getaway that we've been hyping up all week, and that is a really, really good prize. And we will announce that winner. But first, we're gonna get to a couple of our special sponsors. First up is Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. We are all guilty of having too many subscriptions. I don't care who you are. You've just hit that subscribe button and set it and forget it. And even when you check even if you're somebody who is slightly responsible and you check your bank statement, you still might not go in there and unsubscribe, or you might forget all about it. But that's where Rocket Money comes in. They have over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. All you have to do is stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/garden. That's rocketmoney.com/garden. I know Dennis isn't here, but he's a subscription king. And he's come on this show and he's talked a lot about how Rocket Money has saved him hundreds of dollars. And I actually do believe him. The guy is completely reckless. So he needs a product like Rocket Money. And listen, guys, Christmas is coming up. The holidays are coming up. Save a couple bucks, cancel a couple subscriptions. You can always go back to them later. But, save a couple bucks and put some of those gifts towards some of your loved ones. How about that? So, again, that's rocketmoney.com/garden. One more time, that's rocketmoney.com/garden. Second great sponsor of ours is our friends at Game Time. Fans got their money tonight in Indy. Hopefully they use the Game Time app. It is gametime.co if you're going online. Otherwise, download the app. I've used it for concerts. I've used it for sporting events. I guarantee you there are some interesting prices for the World Series right now. Are the Yankees still winning? Does anyone know what the score is?
6-5.
6-5 Yankees.
Yeah.
So there could be we could have ourselves a game 6 situation here. So it might be time to turn on the Game Time app and see if you're in the New York area. Boy, oh boy,
Might be LA.
Yeah, LA. If you're in the LA area, or if you're in the New York area, hop a flight. Keep the Game Time app open and see what you can get. I used it for Coldplay. I'm going to Coldplay next summer. I got the tickets on the Game Time app, and the way I did it was I couldn't get through when they were going for sale. I couldn't get through. So I went on the Game Time app, and I saw tickets were already up there at the same time that they were live elsewhere. And I bought myself 4 tickets to Coldplay with some friends, and we're going. So oftentimes, some people like to wait to the very end to use the Game Time app, but you can also do it right off the bat, and you might be able to save money that way as well. So a few different ways to go about it. They do all-in pricing. You can toggle that feature so you don't get surprised with any fees. They have seat views, so you know exactly what your view is going to be before you buy the ticket, and they guarantee the lowest price, or they'll credit you 100%, 110% of the difference, which is a pretty wild thing that they do too. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code out CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What is it? Game Time. Okay, guys, the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to announce the winner of our giveaway getaway. Once again, it is a PS5. It is a NBA 2K25, and it is a signed Jayson Tatum ball. Amit, drum roll, please. Let's hit the fans with the winner of the getaway. We're going to blast his name up on screen here. His or her. Congrats to Luke Manjurin. Luke Manjurin's your winner. This guy, I think he maximized as many entries as he could, or he came pretty damn close. He is your winner of the getaway giveaway CLNS prize. Luke, if you're watching, congratulations. If you're listening, congratulations.
Not Luke Cornett.
Not Luke Cornett, but we did
Well, Luke always
have
wins
to
when
honor
it's,
a Luke member. I have
clearly,
no idea.
Luke always wins. Luke is always a winner here.
I have no idea how the winner was chosen, but I imagine it was through a very thorough, vetted process. And Luke, if you're watching or listening, we will contact you and we'll get all that figured out and get you your well-deserved prize. And guys, it's not the last giveaway that we're going to do this year, so you got to stay tuned for the next ones. We're going to be doing this all season long. And we appreciate everybody who submitted. I wish I knew how many submissions we get. Maybe Amit can get me that number. Maybe it's a secret, but it would be cool to know how many submissions we got. And that's that. Okay. Let's circle back now. Let's revisit things. See if we can reset here. I'm going to put this back up.
Want to talk about Jaylen?
Yeah, we want to talk about Jaylen. We do want to talk about Jaylen again. As the Celtics drop this one in overtime. First loss of the year. They are now 4-1. As Sherrod mentioned earlier, they're still winning at an 80% clip. So we won't hit the panic button yet. I'm not gonna pull up the panic meter. Oh, there's none of that yet. We're not there. It's one loss. They weren't gonna go 82-0. I think Sherrod has them at 72-10 or something close to that. This could have
That's
been
a
one.
tough
Still
one.
on
You
there.
This could
gotta
have been
pull
one.
this one out.
Yeah, but one of the guys on the team, and one of the reasons why they did take an L tonight, Jaylen Brown. I think he started off scoring the team's first 6 points, if I'm not mistaken. Him and Al, I think, were carrying the Celtics early in that first quarter. Cooled off significantly. You see the 1 of 11 from 3 there. We already talked about Tatum being 5 of 18. These guys could not hit a thing tonight from beyond the arc, and really it was kind of tough sledding for most of the game. Bobby, we'll start with you since you want to put him on the stand here. What do you have to say?
Yeah, it feels similar to last year around this time, right? Remember we were debating, like, with this new look team, what's his role? Where does he fit in? Is it going to be a trick or treat year for him a lot of the time because of the fact that he's not on the ball a ton and there's other guys who are going to be handling the ball? And again, similar to last year, it's Jrue, it's Derek a lot of the time involved in a lot of the actions, and Brown's just kind of fitting in where he can. And then later in the year, he found that groove and shots started falling and just became such a great finisher for their plays that he ended up almost making the All-NBA team. So maybe it's just that slow warm-up again. Maybe it's just early in the season. But he does seem to be back in that place where he's not super in sync. And defensively, I've liked this game to start this year. But he got crushed on that back cut by Mathurin late. That was a tough play for him where he just kind of fell asleep and Mathurin got him backdoor in overtime there. So there's another tough one for him. Last game, he started 1 of 6, got blazing hot and finished so strong. I think like 10 of 12 to close that game or something like that. So panic meter for him, no. I still feel great about where he's at, and especially the defense I think he can lean on, even if his shot's not there like it wasn't tonight. But you look at some of the shooting stats from the start this year, and it's not pretty. 46% effective field goal coming into this game, 41% from 2. And the three-pointer fell way off tonight, too, after a decent start to the year for him in that category. And free throws, man, still for him, it's like you got to get that down.
Oh, God.
It's a small weakness
pain.
for him, but
Freaking pain.
it's
It's
tough.
a big weakness.
Wait, what do you mean? He was 82% from free throws going into this game. What was he tonight?
He
Two
missed
of
two
four.
he missed 2 horrible
2 of
ones.
4.
That's all that matters in
Yeah.
overtime.
But he has been better this season from the line. I've noticed that he has been. So we just want to be fair.
No,
I'll give you that.
I think that's big for him because that was probably his only weakness last year, outside of turnovers, which are always going to kind of be there for him.
Yeah.
How about
Go ahead,
Borb here?
Noah.
He's had 1 good shooting half so far. Is that accurate? Is that fair?
He was good on opening night, wasn't he? I thought, at least.
Tatum kind of stole his thunder, I think. But yeah.
I think Jaylen is one of those guys, though, just to be fair here, because I know that he's a tough watch when he's off. Like, he's more of a tough watch when he's off than
He
most
takes
stars.
tough shots. That's the thing, right?
Because and it's kind of like when Curry is off and he's airballing 3-pointers, and it's like, why would you take that? And it's because it's like that's what his game is, and it just looks really ugly when you miss. And I feel like him winning Finals MVP last year, and him leading the team to a championship, he needs to make us give him the benefit of the doubt when he has a couple of these nights. Like, it's just way too early in the season, in my opinion, to be like concerned about him at all, because this is just who he is. This is his game, and last year it's a big part of why they won the championship. And so I don't know. I mean, he had a terrible game tonight. He made 3 for his last 16 shots. That's what he finished with, because he was 7 for 14 at one point, and then he just totally fell off.
He went on that stretch too between Detroit and the Milwaukee game, the start of the Milwaukee game. I think he missed 22 of 27. So he's had some really rough shooting stretches. And to your point, Noah, it's a lot of tough shots, and he's so good at making them. He makes it look easy sometimes, and then when it's not there, you're like, oh, is Brown making good decisions? Is he doing the right thing out there? And then that Detroit game in particular, you can go back and watch a whole quarter from that game where they fell apart up 20, and a lot of it was him just making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And the compounding mistakes has always, it's been a hallmark of his struggles, is when he's off, it just seems to kind of pile on to one another. And, he's not gonna take the back seat because he's off. So it's that's the trade-off with him. For the good things, that's what you get. And I think unless we see a larger sample of something's completely different from last year, I think you just have to take it for who he is at this point.
I want to go back and watch that last play too,
Yeah.
Jimmy. They gave him the ball. It looked like a good look, right? Down 3 there and just airballed it.
It wasn't even close. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it I didn't get the chance to. I ran up here, so I didn't get a chance to watch it twice.
Yeah,
But
Tatum
yeah,
hit the
it was
110 regulation,
definitely
so you're like, all right,
an
you
airball.
go back there. But I think Brown was
I
wide
was
open.
kind of surprised they went to Brown just because he wasn't on tonight. And Tatum wasn't either, and Tatum hit that shot. But I don't think they hit a 3-pointer in overtime at all. They couldn't really do much in overtime there, unfortunately. But Brown had the turnover to start right off. They got a defensive stop to start overtime, and then Brown dribbled it off his foot, I think it was, in the first possession.
He had 2 steals. Tatum had 4. They forced a ton of turnovers in this game. Credit to them for that. They need to get better at that.
It's a back and forth game. It was a little sloppy at times, I think, in both directions. But
and that's the thing. Jaylen can struggle in that. He thrives, right? Going full court, playing in transition. But sometimes where it gets a little fast, especially in the half court, we've seen it on defense and stuff too. The game can speed up on him a little bit sometimes. And this is a tough environment for the Celtics as a whole, I feel like, Sherrod. And I'm still sitting here all these months later, how did they sweep this team? They gave him so many troubles, and they won that series 4-0.
And it was an unconventional sweep because I thought that Indiana gave them the toughest go, even though it doesn't look like that in terms
by far.
But the way that Indiana just absolutely they forced the Celtics to execute, forced the Celtics to do a lot of late game, just execution and things of that nature that they didn't have to really do that against Dallas. They really didn't have to do that against Cleveland.
Should they have drawn one up for Pritchard at the buzzer?
You laugh,
yes.
But, you laugh, but we even talked about Pritchard at all, but I'm actually going to play. I'm a believer. I'm going to place the 6-man bet because I don't know what it is, but the odds are still probably pretty good.
Probably like 2,000.
If he's getting, and he did tonight, serious fourth quarter burn and overtime burn, then he's definitely going to be in contention for 6-man, 100%. If that's where he is in Joe's circle of trust, I wouldn't have had a problem at all if he took that last shot. In fact, I would rather him take that last shot. If he can get open for a 3-pointer right now, gun to head, who would you rather have? Peyton Pritchard shooting a 3 or Jaylen Brown shooting a 3? To me, it's easy. I'm giving it to Pritchard because he's got the hot hand. He's probably I have no idea who the leaders are in 3-pointers right now, but I imagine he's up there because he's been hot.
Al's number 1. He's number 2.
So there you go. And what about just total threes?
Pritchard's number 1 in total threes.
So there you go. So he's the best 3-point shooter in the league to start the year. I feel like it's on Mizzou to figure out a way to get him the ball. You can't tell me Pritchard can't get open for a shot. He can get open for shots all game. He's Sparky McSparkplug out there. He can zip and zap all around the court.
Have him take it from half court.
Him and McConnell were like the Spider-Man meme for the whole game when they were going one-on-one against each other.
Awesome. I thought McConnell was about to go on another one of his East Finals runs for a little
I don't get to
there.
see McConnell a lot, but every time I see him play, I'm like, this guy's unreal.
He's not a good shooter, but when he plays the Celtics, he lights on fire.
He becomes Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But he's just, he's making passes, skip passes with spin on the ball. This guy's all over the map. I love McConnell, but
shout out to Carlisle. He's really developed that team into just a unique style that's so hard to play against.
Yeah. Rick's a heck of a coach. Having worked with him when he was in Detroit many years ago, Rick figures out what he's got to do to give his team a chance to compete. You go back and you start looking at just the teams he's coached. He's had teams that were defensive heavy because that's where the talent was, and he's had teams that like this one where you got lots of guys that can get buckets, and he'll craft his strategy around what his roster looks like, and not shoehorn his plan, his system with the talent. If the talent doesn't fit, he's not going to do that. There's a lot of coaches who get fired and they don't understand, why did I get fired? Because you have a system that doesn't align itself with the players you have. That's why. Rick doesn't really do that, though.
No, so that was unfortunate ending to that game. So I mean, that's Jaylen Brown. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say on him. I mean, I think again, it's the Jaylen Brown experience.
Just something to
You're-
watch. Just
You're
something
going to
to
get
watch.
games like this, right? I mean, you're going to get the games where he goes into kind of takeover mode, and the broadcast tonight was drooling over Brown for a lot of the night, talking about how much muscle he's put on, 8 pounds of muscle, and look at those arms and things like that. So it's not like he's not putting the work. I mean, that was the broadcast. That wasn't me. But
What
Hard to
broadcast were you
ignore.
listening
I
to?
don't
How do you
know,
feel
Jimmy.
about
That
it?
sounded very
I was on the
authentic.
ESPN broadcast tonight. They were
Okay,
talking.
I was watching NBC.
They were talking about his arms, like
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about NBC.
No,
I was
I
like,
was
NBC
talking-
didn't even mention it.
No offense to NBC. I love the guys at NBC, but it was on ESPN tonight, so I tossed it on there. I like to get a national perspective sometimes, just to an outsider's perspective on these guys. But yeah, they were.
By the
going
way,
on
it's
and on
not
about
slowing
Tatum.
down.
I mean, about Brown.
There's an interesting road trip, Jimmy, and I was thinking about it the whole game, especially when it seemed like they're about to lose going away. But the Hornets are going to fly. That Hornets team plays a style that's really difficult to keep up with speed-wise. And, of course, Horford's not out there for one of those games. And then Atlanta on Monday, like you remember last year, they turned up the heat on them physically and with speed in those games in April to beat the Celtics twice. So this is a tough road trip. This can end up being like 4 tough games that are really difficult on Boston here, just stylistically. But I'm high on the Hornets, and no one else seems to be. So maybe they'll
I was
destroy
gonna
them, and
say-
they still stink.
How are you
I'm
high
so
on the
curious.
Hornets?
Bobby's obsessed with the Hornets right now. I'm
Why?
so curious to see how they're going to play out because I feel like, I mean, they've looked much better than last season. But yeah, why are you so excited about them? Like, what is the?
I
what's
only
the
want to
main
talk
vibe?
about the Hornets for like 2 minutes. So you have like a minute left.
You have LaMelo. Brandon Miller's out, so that's tough right now. And, of course, so is Mark Williams. So 2 of the 3 players I'm really excited about with them are out. But I think they're so talented. I think they have role guys already who are capable of, doing the little things. Josh Green, they picked up from the Mavs. You have Miles Bridges, who's obviously pretty dynamic as a scorer. They have so much talent to work with right now. And I feel like they finally have a coaching staff, of course, one that came over from Boston, that can actually start to build something with this team. They're going to do some dumb stuff. They're young. I think it's a pretty undisciplined team that's going to take a while to really build winning habits with. But you're going to go against LaMelo in 2 days, and he's going to shoot 14 threes and maybe hit like 6 or 7, and he's just so dynamic. And he's a player that I can't, despite the injuries and despite all the other issues with his game, I can't give up on. And I think they're going to be a playing team this year.
LaMelo. I like
He's a
LaMelo
good
Ball
player.
too. Yeah,
He's a
I
good
think.
player.
And guess who else plays for the Hornets? Grant Williams.
I knew this was coming. I knew
I was
this was
curious
coming.
if this was coming.
I was
17
fearing
points in 23 minutes tonight for Grant Williams.
Really?
That's
Did they
shocking.
win?
That might be the most shocking stat.
Yeah,
of
they
this
beat the
whole show.
Raptors.
Wow.
Again,
So
no
the
Brandon
Raptors.
Miller.
There you go. They beat the Raptors.
Ahmed just sent me a text. He said the
We don't have
Hornets are
Scotty Barnes.
Hornets are your new Raptors. So they're your new.
I think
love.
they're that team that I fall in love with this year. Yeah.
The Hornets.
Were you in
okay.
love with the
No.
Raptors last year?
No, that was
No.
like 2020.
Okay.
This was the OG show seasons, Noah.
I
don't
still
think
got
you
love
were-
for the Raptors, though.
I
But
don't think you
the
were
rebuild is
watching
on.
yet.
No.
Yeah, Bobby had a massive Toronto following. Actually, he's huge in Canada. So
I never heard about this.
whenever he goes over
Actually,
the border, it's
I haven't
big
been
to
able to
do.
go up to Toronto specifically since 2019, so I'm looking forward to my next
a lot
trip.
of people are asking about you up there, mate. One guy that we've got this lower third for that we might as well talk about because we haven't yet. Derek White.
He's out of this world. I know Noah thinks he's gonna make the All-Star team.
He will.
They have to have
will.
3.
I think he will too.
He'll
I
get
think
3 in.
we'll-
He'll get in.
I mean,
No Pritchard?
No.
No.
Pritchard. I mean, I think Pritchard's going to make the 3-point contest, though. My bold prediction, and he's going to win it. But Derek White, 8 for 9 tonight. Some big defensive stands, a nice steal. Again, 5 for 5 and 3. The one thing I hate to be a downer though, but the one thing that I'm going to remember, I think, is he gave Siakam that shot.
He was low.
At the end of
He was
overtime.
playing really low.
What was the reason for that? Did he not realize the shot clock was winding
No,
down? At
I
that
think
point?
you're
'Cause Siakam
worried.
couldn't
Siakam-
really do anything else.
He was worried about
He
the
gets a
drive.
first. he gets a first step on you, and you're
But
in
you
trouble.
gotta assume that someone's gonna be collapsing behind you. I mean,
It was a
on
tie
Now,
game, wasn't it?
not the way they were playing defense tonight. No.
it was a tie game, yes, and Siakam was out there at 3-point line, and
So he could have gone for
you
2.
know, White
Yeah.
closed as quickly as he could, but once Siakam raised up for the shot, that was it. He gave him a lot of space, and that ended up being the dagger, obviously. But aside from that, you got to love what you've seen from White. With some clutch shots. And again, national broadcast, they were talking about him as one of the best two-way players in the NBA, which
Yeah.
I think most people would agree. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was, all defense last year, second team, I think it was, right? Or was
One
it
of the
first
best
team?
moments of the year, too, that block on Cade in Detroit. He's been perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy does no wrong. It's unreal how consistent, effective, and big of a part of this team he's become. And the shooting, it just doesn't stop. He got here in 2022, couldn't figure it out with the shot, made some tweaks that summer, and it feels like he's a 40% three-point shooter ever since. So I could see All-Star in a scenario where some of the other like stars per se are hurt out there. It'll be a challenge if everyone's healthy and rolling, but of course that's not the case to start this year. And Scotty Barnes just went down in Toronto,
I don't think
so
it's
he
going to be
might
a
sneak in
challenge.
there.
You're
You
going
don't
to get
think
a
so?
coach. You're going to get a coach who puts him in.
And you're
Yeah,
if you're-
right. Because Joe wasn't in there last year, was he?
Yeah, and you're going to be basically the most consistent player on a team with the best record. And by consistent, I mean your ability to be both a top tier scorer and a top tier defender. I don't know how you can put it on. If he continues to play, his numbers obviously are going to take a bit of a dip from where they are now. You know that,
I
but
don't know.
he's not going to get you 22, 23 a game. That ain't happening.
Then
He
he'll be
just
an
might.
All-Star easily.
Then
Then
we're having a different conversation, because if he's getting you that with his rebounds, his assists, and his defense, we might be talking all NBA at that point, which we will not be talking about with Derek White. So stop it, Jimmy. Just stop it.
We sometimes we make bold statements on this show.
Oh,
I'm just
God.
saying.
We do.
Derek White's going to get all the minutes to be able to put up numbers like that. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go 8 of 9 from the field that isn't going to happen, but there's no reason to believe that he can't get you up around 20 points a game. There's no reason not to believe that,
He'll be in the high teens. He'll be a high teen scorer.
And if they keep winning at the rate they're winning, Noah's nailed it on the head. You're gonna send 3. They're gonna send 3 players to the All-Star game. Now, whatever.
I just think there's going to be. I just think there's going to be a little bit of like they won the championship last year and then they get rewarded this year. Kind of like the Jokic MVP stuff, where after he won, everybody was content with giving him MVP again. I feel like they're going to be like, okay, they deserve the championship. They were historically good last year, and we didn't give them 3 last year. Let's give them 3 now. And he's the obvious one because Porzingis isn't even in the mix. So that's I feel pretty good about it.
Well, actually, White's been respected the whole way.
Everybody loves White. Yeah, he's respected by everybody. So I feel like he'll.
Right. Maybe he'll make it over.
Does the All-Star game matter? I forget. What's
Jimmy,
at stake in the All-Star game?
Jimmy, maybe he'll make it over Jaylen.
No, that would be a hot take. I think Jaylen's head would pop off if that happened.
I don't even want to. I want to be around if Jaylen doesn't make All-Star. I'm going up to Maine and covering the Maine Celtics that week.
We won't talk about that. Yeah, exactly. You won't. You know who you won't see up there in Maine? You guys want to talk about it for a second?
No,
you're
Lonnie
definitely
Walker.
not going to see. Lonnie Walker came out today that he signed with a team in Lithuania. So not quite Maine. He missed the exit, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyways, Lonnie Walker does have an out. Can still be signed by an NBA team based on the way his contract.
Did they say that?
That's what the tweet read. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going by what I see on Twitter.
That makes sense then, because I was looking at their schedule. They play in the May, that team. So it makes sense that he would have an out there. And, opportunities could arise. Everyone in the league is hurt right now, it feels like. Everybody. Then you get 10 days and stuff later in the year. So maybe blows it up over there and ends up coming back. And, you still can't rule out Boston, right? Like, I don't think the relationship's severed here, but obviously he decided that he didn't want to go to the G League, probably for money reasons, probably for strategic reasons, just to be able to put himself in the best position to actually sign to an NBA team in the end there. And if you're playing in Maine for, I mean, how much do G League guys even make at this point? 75K or something like that. It's not a lot. You get hurt up there, and then your chances are really blowing up. So I'm surprised that's not the way it went. He seemed like he was willing to do that. Maybe the agent talked him out of it. Maybe that opportunity in Lithuania was too good to give up. But yeah, this obviously puts the odds against him ever playing in Boston here, which I'm sure will disappoint a lot of people.
And on the flip side, I do think that a lot of the fans that were upset, and I still have a story coming out where I talked to a bunch of fans about why they're so mad about Lonnie Walker. But I do
You
think
didn't talk
that
to
this
me.
is no, I didn't.
Are you mad, Jimmy?
You didn't
That's weird.
DM me. I said DM me if you feel passionate about this, and people went to work. So
Nice.
I will say though,
those are my bots.
I feel like this vindicates the Celtics a little bit, or at least like it's not like he got picked up by Denver or got picked up by the Knicks. Like there were some rumors swirling. Like this, he wasn't picked up by any NBA team, and I think there's competing theories to why that is, but ultimately, like it wasn't a Boston thing that they cut him and then everybody else wanted him. Like he couldn't find a spot this year, which is still pretty astounding, but it's not a Celtics specific thing at this point.
So we do have to go back and ask Noah, would you have the whole?
Could have used him tonight.
Fisher actually reported it, which I was surprised because I thought it was just a Twitter thing, people coming up with the scenario for how they would have done it. They actually did shop Springer around, according to Fisher, and try to clear that spot for Walker, and it just didn't work. So I do think there is a what if here if it doesn't work out with Springer. You could have had Walker in that depth development guard role, and we're still kind of looking back. I don't know how he's starting this year, but Ban last year, who I liked, they ended up giving him up for Springer effectively at that spot, and so far it looks like Ban's a little bit of a better player at that position. So you're going to be watching Springer now and saying, like, is he going to be able to figure it out here a little bit, because you missed out maybe on two prospects at that guard spot who were pretty talented.
You know where you won't find Springer or
on the
Walker?
court. I'm sorry.
And also you won't find him on the court, and that's why you won't find him on Prize Picks. Prize Picks. That's my segue to a great sponsor of ours. Guys, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I got to say, it's the best way to. It's the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users. They just invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Guys, I am live on Prize Picks right now. I got some action going, and I'm going to read to you guys what my numbers are. So I've got Wemby, more than 23.5 points. This game is on right now. Spurs Thunder. It's a big one. I got Wemby over 23.5 points, more than 23.5 points. I got Holmgren less than 29 points and rebounds combined. I've got Harden more than 16 rebounds and assists combined. And Zubac more than 32 points, rebounds, and assists combined. I know everybody paid attention and wrote all those numbers down, but that's what I'm working with. That's to win $50. All right, folks. So we're not talking about chump change here. So sign up today and get your $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And Prize Picks, run your game. It's their slogan. I love it. I'm running my game right now. I have won before, so I'm playing with house money as far as I'm concerned. I kind of got this thing figured out, so I might have to play a little bit more often. And that's Prize Picks. You guys, we'll go around a few more minutes here. We're about an hour and 15 minutes through, and I know, everyone's burning the midnight candle here. What is it? Midnight candle or midnight oil?
Midnight oil, Jimmy.
Midnight oil. Little homeschool flashback there. Burning the midnight oil. What's left? We talked about. Oh, Noah.
No joke.
Noah.
I don't know.
Noah.
I don't know much about your background.
Yeah, I'm homeschooled.
Wasn't that because it was Pritchard? Pritchard was homeschooled, right? That's where that came from.
That's where that came from? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, it was. I remember.
That's where the whole thing originated from. I thought it was because. Never mind. I'm not even gonna say it. So what's left, guys? I mean, we've talked Tatum, we've talked Brown, we've talked White, we've talked Cade. We've kind of gone around the horn here. I mean, are the Pacers legit? How about that? Is this a team the Celtics need to be concerned about? For the record, I listed two teams I was concerned about to start the year. You already know I picked the Knicks to win the East, which was a very bold pick, I will say, maybe a little too bold. And then I had the Pacers as my other team. So those two teams are the ones that stand out to me. I know you guys are a little bit more focused on like the Sixers, although we're not really sure if they're even going to be a team at any point this year. You've got a team like the Cavs that nobody's talking about that have really started the season out pretty strong.
Yeah,
and then
they look good.
The Bucks are always hanging around. So the East, I'm not ready to say the East is better than the West. That would be factually incorrect, but don't sleep on the East anymore. I feel like there's some legit competition starting to form in the East. I mean, Banchero's doing his thing now in Orlando. They're going to be a tough out, and they were a team that gave the Celtics issues already. So I don't think there's a lot of – I mean, this Celtics team can sometimes make it look like they're just, cakewalk, but there's going to be some competition, I think, in the East.
It should be. I mean, the Celtics are clearly the best team in the East, but they're not going to just be able to just walk over teams and have no pushback. But you're starting to see, I think, a trend of the type of teams that could give them problems. Teams that like to get out and run. Teams that look to attack and finish at the rim. And yes, the Celtics are a great three-point shooting team, but, let's be honest. If my defense can get me 3 stops of you taking bad threes and shot chucking, and I can get 2 layups, that's 4-0. That's a 4-0 advantage I have right there. The Celtics, if they're going to continue to be a 3-point shooting 50+ per game type team in terms of attempts, they have to get better at their rim protection defensively. They can't allow dribble drive penetration or teams to get out and transition and score as easily as they have been able to so far this year. They've got to get better in that area.
Yeah, I can't see a scenario where the Pacers would beat them 4 times. I'm a little disappointed by Halliburton to start this year. Even tonight, didn't hurt the Celtics a ton. Good passing, but he can't get his shot off the way he did to start last year. I don't know if there's still any lingering effects of the injury from a year ago. They aggravated in the playoffs, obviously. So he's off to a weird start, and they're still playing great in spite of it, as you talked about there earlier, Noah. Nembhard played 5 minutes tonight. I don't know what was up with that. I know Abby said on the broadcast that he wasn't hurt. Oh, so he was hurt. That makes sense. Yeah, so they're deep. They hit you in waves. I think this is more of a depth league than ever, and they might be the deepest opponent that the Celtics see. I mean, no Turner and Nembhard tonight effectively. They still win. So shout out to them. They're well coached, as we've talked about. They play a style that hurts the Celtics. Maybe as it was a year ago, this is the team that would give you the biggest challenge, but there's no defense. There really isn't. You can score on them whenever you need to in a big moment, and there's mismatches everywhere. So that, to me, I mean, they played that well against the Celtics, as I've said a million times tonight, and still lost 4-0. So I can't see them putting 4 together against the Celtics. As I said the other night, I do think there's a world where the Bucks could figure it out and put it all together in a full series against the Celtics, but I don't think Indiana would get there. Although, Jimmy, you got to take them seriously. I mean, it'd be challenging as hell.
I mean, their bench tonight was legit, too. I mean, they've got some depth on there. Mathurin, Toppin, McConnell. I mean, those guys.
They really missed him in May.
Those guys affected the game all game. I mean, even Toppin was out there blocking shots. Grabbing board. I mean, that's a good bench they have in Indy. If they can stay healthy, and again, that was, if you want to look at one thing the Celtics got lucky with, it was playing against teams that were banged up last year. And Indy was right up there with the banged up teams they played in the playoffs. So a lot of these teams, if they can get back or keep their health, it's going to be difficult. And again, you know, the Pacers didn't even have Turner tonight. So another guy on their team that's kind of like the heart and soul of that team, right? He's been in that organization for a long time. So I do think the Pacers are legit. I really do. I'm not saying that just because of tonight. I just think, I'm sure I mentioned it, kind of like their style of play a little bit. I haven't watched a second of the Cavs, so I don't know anything about what they've been up to, but I do know that, you know, there are some people that think that they're a sneaking under the radar team that's gonna make some noise this year.
Depends how you feel about Mobley. Like, I feel like everything's on him if they're gonna be legit or not. And he looks good to start this year. I like their coach too.
Yeah. So that's
What do
the
you think?
East.
No, you scared of the Pacers?
I just think in
She
general,
loves the Pacers. She's a
What
sneaky
do you mean?
Pacers fan. You're a sneaky Pacers fan. You already said it earlier on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm a fan. Oh, did I say that on the show? I just think in general we need to be more like, we need to give credit to the teams that were there last year. Like they were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and so it's not that speculative to believe in them. It's like they were there. They were the team that Joe Mazzulla has said on the record was the hardest matchup for Boston. So I respect them because it's not theoretical. It's what we already saw. And yeah, they had, they faced teams with injuries as well, but you can only play who you play. And so, and the depth, like you said, like the depth is it stands out all the time. How many times have we seen that graphic of like Pacers bench points and then whoever they're playing, it's just not comparable. So, if Halliburton's not Halliburton that we saw last year in the in-season tournament, like they're not going to be like a legitimate threat, but if, they're still going to be a very tough out for anybody. So yeah, lots of respect for them.
I think that's going to do it, guys. I think we've kind of said everything we've had to say about this game. We've got 2 more coming up this week, both in Charlotte. Bobby, are you going to Charlotte?
Yeah, me and Noah
or
are
did I
going.
make that up? Noah's going too. Love it. We're going to have boots on the pavement in Charlotte. We're going to have a one-on-one. We better have a one-on-one with our guy
With Grant?
Bobby. Yeah.
Let's get him on the show. Remember,
one of you can make it happen. Yeah,
Sherrod, didn't you bring him on the show in Charlotte?
I did.
In Charlotte?
we were in Charlotte, yeah.
That's true. He had like his whole family there, right?
It was like the Williams clan and family and friends discount program or something going on there.
Yeah, that's what it was.
There's a lot of Grant love in that room that night.
Yeah, well, it had to be. It was literally his family.
His people.
Yeah,
people
so
in the building.
Bobby's going to be secretly cheering for the Hornets this weekend. Something to be on the lookout for. Noah, please keep
Maybe
him in
for
line.
Grant. Maybe for Grant.
Little like quiet clap under the table when Grant, gets his first couple points of the game, something like that. All right, guys. Yeah, again, we want to thank our sponsors. We'll thank Rocket Money. You want to go to rocketmoney.com/garden. Good stuff there to save on some subscriptions that you might be paying a little too much for. We also want to thank Game Time. That's the Game Time app. You want to create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And then lastly, our good friends at Prize Picks. You can go over to Prize Picks and download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I got to say this, guys. I don't know if you're going to be able to play a Yankees more or less on Prize Picks after tonight. Sherrod, I hate to say it, Sherrod, and I know you've probably been watching. I know you've probably been watching, peeking at it. The Yanks are now down 7-6.
I know.
I know you know. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna let all the Boston fans. We're gonna end the show here. We're gonna let all the Boston fans get to a TV and see if the Dodgers can hold this lead. Because if the Red Sox can't win the World Series, the second best thing is to just watch the Yankees lose the World Series. I'm sorry, Sherrod. I'm sorry I had to say it, but that is how a lot of us Red Sox fans, if there are any Red Sox fans left, feel. So, again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Amit, can we get this lower third off here, please? Come on, dude. Let me do it. There you go. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Celtics play again on Friday in Charlotte. We will be here. We've got Bobby and Noah at the game. I know a few of us will be watching it, and we'll be jumping on the show. I will also be on the show Friday night. Sorry for those who don't want to hear that. Celtics drop it tonight, 135, 132. I think that's the score in overtime. And they dropped their first game of the season, but there were some good things to take out of it. A couple of other things that might not be so good, but lots to watch for as the season unfolds. So that's going to do it for us. For Noah, Bobby, Sherrod, I'm Jimmy. Amit, you know what to do. Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal game.
Horford's out. I think it's an option.
That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.